What's going on, Paizonos? It's me, Tony Pizza, here with your somewhat weekly delivery of piping hot Starfinder content, where we combine the ingredients of game mechanics into a beautiful narrative pie, giving you new ways to think about and cook up fresh stories for your group. This is the third in a three-part series about Galaxy Guide, which is the first publication released for Starfinder 2nd edition. This setting book is out a few months before the full launch of the system, but it's got some heavy-hitting, non-core gameplay content that we're gonna review today. In this video, we'll be looking over the 6 archetypes included in Chapter 4 of Galaxy Guide. Wait. But Tony, these are the ABCs of Galaxy Guide. Doesn't ABC mean ancestry, background, and class? Not archetype? Well, my spicy little anchovy, there are no classes in Galaxy Guide. So we're settling for the next best thing, alright? Now, whether your table plays with the free archetype rules variant or not, you're going to want to explore all your options to be able to craft the best build that you can. Archetypes are a great way to combine narrative expansion for your character with gameplay versatility, but not every archetype is a great fit for every class. Today, we will be reviewing each archetype printed within Galaxy Guide and making a rock-solid, stone-cold, irrefutable determination of which archetype fits best with each of the 8 current Starfinder playtest classes. Now, of course, the classes that are being paired with these archetypes aren't fully published at the time of this video's release. As the years slip away from us, portions of this video will become outdated. When that happens, as well as with the release of future classes in the Starfinder 2e system, please use your best judgment and the information in this video to determine if these archetypes will be a good fit for you. In addition, several feats referenced here are either part of a playtest classes chassis or haven't even been published yet, again, at the time of this video's release. That means we've got some educated guesswork ahead of us, which will hopefully be accurate, thanks to the bones of the system's rules already existing in the form of Pathfinder 2. Speaking of guesswork, where the heck did that pesky planet Golarion go? A central story of the world of Starfinder is that the planet upon which Pathfinder takes place, Golarion, went missing long ago. And who else to help find it but the Knights of Golarion? This archetype, as you'll soon discover, is perfect for an intelligence build support martial, which sounds pretty synergistic with the mechanic, although casters could benefit from it as well. The Knight of Golarion dedication does require a bit of a strength commitment, but it gives you some pretty solid lore checks as well as sword proficiency. Now, I want to explain a little bit about gaining weapon proficiency from archetype dedications, since this is a pretty typical convention from Paizo at this point. What I'm about to say applies to several archetypes in Galaxy Guide, so this will come up again later in the video. In cases like this, the dedication will grant you access to certain weapons, letting you essentially skip a rung of what I'm calling the weapon access ladder that climbs from simple to martial to advanced. If you are a martial character, you will already have access to martial weapons, in which case this isn't doing much for you. If you're a caster, while this will grant you a few extra martial weapons, you likely aren't going to be as invested in weaponry for this to matter. In most cases, this is really just a good method for martial characters to sneak in access to an early advanced weapon. In addition, once you hit expertise in weapon proficiency, you gain the associated weapon's crit spec effect, but keep in mind that this is not granting you this early, more so just widening your pool of crit spec options once you hit that level. Okay, enough about that junk. Iomede's Shield at 4th level is a very nice support regen ability for you and all your allies. At 6th level, you grasp Iomede's sword to give yourself a way to deal consistent, persistent damage to some very common enemy types. Once you hit 8th level, you don Iomede's helm. Sensing a naming theme here. To grant an ally an instant reroll on some of the game's most devastating effects. Your level 10 capstone ability, Iomede's Barrage, calls down a holy plasma cannon for some powerful AoE. Now, as we already mentioned, we're pairing the mechanic with this archetype. You could instead go caster, since Iomede's sword does work on spells as well as weapon attacks, but the other abilities here seem to imply that you want to work near allies and in melee to make the best use out of your Iomede's shield and Iomede's helm. Despite that, there aren't many huge damage or debuff opportunities, which is why we're handing this to an int marshal like the mechanic that can afford to take that dip into strength while keeping their high int. If you're instead wanting something more like a big, strong damage boy, and if you've read this book already, or if you've been lurking around the Starfinder corner of the internet lately, you already know this thing slaps. The Space Pirate is one of the coolest archetypes I can recall Paizo ever putting out. Now, before we delve into just how cool it is, let's talk about its limitations. To make the absolute most use out of it, you're going to want a little bit of strength, dexterity, and charisma each. The cornerstone of the Space Pirate build is melee run and gun. So you're going to want a phase cutlass in one hand and a gun in another. And since phase cutlass currently does not have the finesse trait, that's why you'll need both strength and dex. Because of this, you're best off playing the Space Pirate as either a Solarian or an Envoy, as those tend to be both good with weapons and have good uses for the Riz. The Space Pirate dedication is absolutely loaded, giving you piloting training and proficiency in cutlasses, flails, rapiers, and raising weapons. In addition, you get the excellent Hollow Roger free action, which is essentially a slightly better battle cry. Note that the +1 gained is specifically for coerce actions, which are typically done in exploration against an opponent left alive from combat as an interrogation of sorts, so that won't work to demoralize when in encounter mode. At 4th level, you have 3 feat options to choose from. Quip hasn't been published yet at the time that I'm making this, but it sounds like a charisma debuff action a la Bon Mot. Menacing Laughter is typically a soldier class feat, but it kind of steps on the toes of Hollow Roger and is really only best if, for some reason, you're not using Hollow Roger or the initial demoralize check didn't target all combatants. So, in my view, there's really only one option here. Broadside Charge, which is far and away the best option anyways. This feat lets you shoot your gun, stride, and then swing your cutlass, all for 2 actions and all at your current multiple attack penalty or map. This one is a bit like if Sudden Charge and Double Slice had a baby named Clark Kent. The 6th level feats double down on this weapon build, giving you either Twin Draw, an unpublished feat that likely lets you draw both weapons with one action, or Pirate's Parry, a reaction that's essentially the Nimble Dodge feat from Pathfinder 2e, paired with a mapless gun strike which triggers on an opposing crit fail. 8th level then triples down on this build with Pressgang the Soul, another reaction that instead procs when you kill an opponent with the Phase Cutlass. Hopefully you didn't use Pirate's Parry on the same turn, because this feat gets ever more powerful for every kill you make with it. Taking this feat lets you cast Wisp Ally at will, which is typically a ranked spell slot. Oh, and it scales with your character level. This spell generates a small wisp that moves to an opponent, demands a will save, and potentially makes them off guard. The Pressgang the Soul feat allows you to sustain the spell automatically by striking with your Phase Cutlass, and the amount of wisps that you get directly corresponds to how many souls you've absorbed via the aforementioned reaction with a second wisp on an ally, causing Dazzled as well. This is one of the best feats I've ever seen. Your end cap option at level 10 is an operative class feat called Opening Volley, which pairs beautifully with Broadside Charge. This allows for an outstanding turn of a first action of Opening Volley for a no-map ranged strike, followed by a second and third action of Broadside Charge, which would be a -5 map ranged strike, then stride into melee, then only a -3 modifier on your third attack strike with Phase Cutlass. There is the caveat that all these attacks have to be on the same target, but this combo could be a boss shredder, with a few buffs or flanks from teammates. That ballin' pirate-themed archetype has me wondering, can we get much higher? No, we cannot. Sorry folks, nothing really beats the space pirate in this book, though there are some other really cool options. The Xenoarchaeologist is the Starfinder Society's archetype in this book, and it's a really terrific choice for an intelligence and dexterity skill monkey. However, it has some janky and generally strange stuff going on within its feats. We're going to give it to the Witch Warper and the Technomancer, since those are typically going to be your high skill and high int builds, but you'll see that there are some avenues for Mystic as well. The Xenoarchaeologist dedication asks a lot of you, requiring you to be proficient in Society, Thievery, and one magic skill, Arcana, Nature, Occultism, or Religion. If you choose either of Nature or Religion, you'll need training in skills tied to 3 different attributes, Intelligence, Dexterity, and Wisdom, to even access this bad boy. If you do go this route, however, you are rewarded with expertise in Society and Thievery, as well as +1 to recall checks specifically outside of combat. You also gain the additional lore feat for Delve Lore, which is kind of the fulcrum around which this archetype operates. Because of that, the devs did have the foresight to allow for either Intelligence or Wisdom to be used for Delve Lore, which is a very nice touch. Interestingly, there's no 4th level feat option, but instead another 2nd level feat of Don't Touch That! This is a solid anti-hazard pickup that uses your Delve Lore, allowing you to provide a bit of a buff to an ally who triggers a trap. We follow that up with Ready for Trouble at 6th level, which requires Mastery in Thievery. That's a hefty prereq of getting a skill mastery by 6th level, but this one grants the Danger Awareness Operative feat. The playtest form of this feat does some serious heavy lifting in multiple areas, granting extra perception to find traps and sneaky monsters, and extra AC and saves against the same. In addition, it grants free perception checks for traps just like the Trap Finder feat, and as a cherry on top, gives you an initiative tiebreaker. This perception boost also does somewhat validate a wisdom variant of this archetype for Mystics. Xenoarch then goes on to provide a 7th level skill feat of Byzantine Linguistics, which requires mastery in Society. Yeesh, one of the drawbacks to this archetype is how prereq heavy it is regarding skills. And this feat is also a little head-scratching. It gives access to certain uncommon languages, which is solid, but then it allows you to swap from Society to your Delve Lore for Decipher writing checks. Wait, why? Didn't we need to be masters in Society to even unlock this feat? Why would we then want to switch off of it? This feat also grants +1 when trying to decipher a language you don't know. Honey, doing this already comes with a hefty penalty, and is potentially not even possible based on the scenario, and is largely being left up to GM Fiat. I don't need your stinking +1. This feat, I hate to say it, smells a bit rotten, like another system I think we've all played. This archetype wraps with Statistical Anomaly at 10th level, a reaction that triggers once per hour when you crit fail a save or skill check, allowing you to reroll the miss. This is another baffling design decision though. The base use of the feat requires you to use the second roll. Okay, that makes sense. But if the check was for Delve Lore or a save against a hazard, guess what? You get to use the better result of the two instead of being forced into the second result. Paizo, are we not seeing the issue with this? In what universe would the second result on a critical failure not inevitably be the better result? I just don't quite understand the purpose of this distinction, and maybe I'm missing something, but the later feats for this prereq heavy archetype just ain't hitting for me. You know what do be hitting though is the inevitable march of late stage capitalism. That's right, next up is the AbadarCorp Rep archetype. I really appreciate how straightforward this archetype is compared to some of the others. It's very clear on what it wants to do, and it loves using charisma in fun ways. We're going to slot in the Operative for the AbadarCorp Rep. Quick disclaimer that the Operative was actually one of the hardest classes to assign to one of the 6 archetypes in this book. There weren't too many great fits that didn't end up being super multiple ability dependent or mad. That being said, Operative can actually work in quite a few of these archetypes as long as you're willing to be a bit mad. Alright, so the AbadarCorp Rep dedication, geez, that's a mouthful, does require you to have training in either Deception, Diplomacy, or Society. See, Xenoarch? Only one skill requirement. Wasn't that easy? In exchange, it grants you additional lore for business or corporate lore. Similar to Delve lore for the Xenoarch, this archetype makes use of this skill quite a bit. However, it's only tied to intelligence, so you'll want some of that in your build as well. The archetype branches out into 3 options for a 4th level feat, including According to My Calculations, Sales Pitch, and Corporate Speak. All 3 of these use your business lore in some way, so before you commit to this archetype, make sure you know that you're going to want that lore skill at pretty high numbers. No rookie numbers here. According to My Calculations is a nice one-action attack or skill buff for an ally at an often manageable DC by level. Sales Pitch instead allows you to use business lore for diplomacy, letting you use int instead of riz for 1 check per 24 hours that has the added benefit of being super effective on a success or crit success. Corporate Speak is rather niche, but is actually a really nice little ability that lets you openly transmit secret messages to allies by talking about, I don't know, stonks or something. Ops can roll perception against your business lore DC to find you out, but this could have some pretty cool applications in a more urban or RP-focused campaign. The Abadar Rep has skill feats the rest of the way, with 1 at 5th level and 2 at 7th level. The 5th level option, It's Who You Know, is extremely niche and arguably unnecessary, letting you use diplomacy to gather information or society to create forgery in half the usual time. Usually, you're performing these activities when you have the time anyways, so this is a very minor benefit. At 7th level, we have Do You Know Who I Work For? And Maximize Profits. The former is an outstanding feat that is arguably the sole reason to dip into this archetype at all. It requires expertise in intimidation, and it bumps all your intimidation checks for coerce and demoralize from successes to crit successes with no cooldown, but only if the target has heard of AbadarCorp. Sweetie, if you're even taking this archetype at all, it's very likely that every single creature or being you face will apply to this. AbadarCorp is like Jeff Bezos times a billion. Have you heard of him? LMAO, crit success, you're scared now. Sorry for you. Take this feat with confidence, every time. Maximize Profits, instead, is a nifty downtime feat that swaps failed earn income checks to successes. Nice for some extra cash in your pocket. Next up, we're gonna pay a little visit to the fascists of the Desna's Path galaxy with the Hellknight archetype. If you've ever seen even precisely one Hellknight before, which now you have, then you'll know that this archetype is a shoo-in for the soldier class. This archetype is unique in that the dedication doesn't come until 6th level, with the final end cap feat being at 14th level. This is a pretty cool mid-game build centered around armor, which is perfect for the soldier since they want to prioritize HP and since they have slightly slower weapon proficiency scaling than other marshals. The dedication will give you expertise in intimidation, so you'll want some charisma on your fascist, as well as special Hellknight regalia that gives you your armor spec plus an additional point of resistance, an additional upgrade slot for armor, and a bonus to intimidation checks while wearing it. Similar to how other archetypes provide rung-jumping methods for weapon proficiency, Hellknights do the same for armor, allowing you to treat medium armor as light or heavy armor as medium. Funnily enough, this again doesn't benefit the class most likely to take it, as soldiers start with training in all armor at level 1 and become expert in all armor by 7th level, one level after you'd pick up this dedication. Any other class, though, will save on a feat, and can bump themselves up by one rung of the ladder with this archetype. Level 8 brings the Disperse feat, which is a very fun one-action intimidation check to shove and stride. This is a great option for a soldier who wants to throw a monkey wrench into the battlefield without investing heavily in strength or athletics. At 10th level, you can choose Infernal Bulwark, a decent feat that's also a little baffling to me. Let's explain why. First, the good. Any armor you wear gains the Bulwark trait, which replaces your Dex mod on reflex saves with a static +3. In addition, your special Hellknight Regalia armor will grant you resistance to one damage type when you wear it. The baffling part is that this feat also grants you training in heavy armor, or expertise in heavy armor if you were already trained. Huh? Soldiers straight up don't need this, because they got expertise in heavy armor 3 levels ago. Any other class likely took this dedication at level 6, partially to wear heavy armor without having to take a feat specifically to do so. So giving them heavy armor training here doesn't really do anything, especially in the case of the Golarion and Mechanic, who are going to be bumping their armor to expert 1 level after taking this. I suppose you could sneak your way to heavy armor expertise early on another class by taking the armor proficiency feat before this, but that just seems like so much investment to get heavy armor expertise a little earlier than usual. Anyways, let's get back to the good stuff. We follow that with Infernal Armaments at 12th level, which is a really good feat for the soldier especially. Before we chat about it, however, let's talk about the 4 Hellknight orders that are available to you, as your choice of order will determine the damage type of your 10th, 12th, and 14th level feats. We've got Order of the Chain with electricity, Order of the Crucible with cold, Order of the Eclipse with void, and Order of the Pyre with fire. This damage type correlates to which resistance you get with Infernal Bulwark at 10th level, as well as the type of damage you'll be dealing with Infernal Armaments at 12th level, and the end cap feat of Unleash Hell at level 14. This split between giving you both resistance and damage makes this choice interesting. Do you want to resist more common damage, yet also deal more commonly resisted damage, or resist more niche damage while dealing damage that's less likely to be resisted? Infernal Armaments is specifically great for the soldier regardless of what order you pick, because it grants you extra damage at the exact time when the soldier needs it. Among the 8 playtest classes currently available at the time of recording, what we'll call the base marshals of Envoy, Golarion, Mechanic, and Soldier are trained in their weapons at 1st level, hit Expert at 5th level, and cap out at Master later on. Notably, all of these except the Soldier get Master proficiency at 13th, while the Soldier has to wait until 15th. This damage buff for a soldier-themed archetype at 12th level helps to mitigate that drop-off in strike accuracy for levels 13 and 14. Then, at level 14, you get Unleash Hell, a powerful 2-action AoE cone that uses either your associated order damage or spirit damage, whichever would hurt the opponent the most. We wrap with an archetype that is familiarly formatted to Pathfinder fans, yet complex, and whose dedication comes at 4th level instead of at 2nd. The Xenodruid, a card-carrying member of the Xenowardens. Do they have cards? Are the cards just plant sticks? Just twigs?
Twig-carrying member.
This is an uncommon archetype, the only one in this book. Xenodruids are specifically meant for mystics, and even more specifically meant for primal mystics trained in nature, so you'll want to choose Elemental Mystic or Rhythm Mystic as a subclass when building at level 1. Alternatively, you could build this on top of the Mystic multiclass archetype, skipping the usual requirement to take 2 additional feats after your Mystic dedication, and instead building out both of these trees at once. The Xenodruid is going to be best for firmly on-world campaigns that take place on one planet, as it allows you to form your Mystic bond with an entire planet's ecosystems. This special version of a Mystic bond grants a boost to recall checks, survival checks, and hazard saves related to environmental effects on your bonded planet. When you do happen to be off-world, you even get a bonus to piloting checks and always know how to find your way back home. Finally, once per day, you can roll a very hittable DC 20 nature check to discern any issues with your planet. There are quite a few adventure hooks listed within this galaxy guide where I can see this ability coming in very, very handy. The Xenodruid feats listed here are quite minimal, but that's because you could be pairing these with the Mystic multi-class archetype feats or regular Mystic class feats along the way. Let's explore the Xenodruid feats first, then take a look at what this archetype could do when layered atop the Mystic multi-class archetype later. At level 6, you can choose Planetary Bond. Narratively, this adds some edicts and anathemas, but mostly you're taking this to gain the immensely powerful, permanent, passive, speak with plants and animals with the entire planet ability, as well as a +2 bonus to make requests of the little critters you come across. 12th level holds 2 endcap feats, Galactic Bond and Planetary Reincarnation. The latter is a terrific healing option that adds the powerful divine spell Breath of Life to your primal list. While on your bonded world, this spell integrates with the Mystic's transfer trait, and you can even use it on yourself if you go down, which is typically not possible with this spell. Galactic Bond instead requires you to have taken Planetary Bond at level 6, which, keep in mind, you may have to plan for if you're running the Mystic archetype as well. This very strong layered feat expands your abilities to include multiple planets, and later grants you a teleport option, the Commune Ritual, and Wrathful Storm as a great AoE choice. Now, since the Mystic multi-class archetype hasn't been published yet at the time that I'm filming this, we are going to have to make some assumptions about how it works, based off of other spellcasting multi-classing archetypes from Pathfinder 2e. Your feat tree, then, will likely look like this. You'll take the Mystic dedication at 2nd level, followed by the Xenodruid dedication at 4th. Alternatively, if you want to wait on Xenodruid for a bit, you could take a 4th level feat that either gives you basic spellcasting, a Mystic class feat, or a subclass choice. I'm not quite sure how this will work here, with Mystic's subclass usually determining your spell list, but we'll all just have to find out together, won't we? Level 6 opens up Planetary Bond if you've gone into Xenodruid already, or more Mystic class feats if you don't like that option. 8th level will then grant you more spell slots. At 12th, you'll have to choose between the 2 aforementioned Xenodruid endcap feats or expert spellcasting from your Mystic tree. That Mystic tree later will likely cap off with 18th level Master Spellcasting. I gotta be honest, I really like these archetypes, gang. Out of the 3 big batches of content in Galaxy Guide, these were the most fun to read and can lead to the most busted build opportunities, especially if you're using free archetype. And come on, who the heck isn't these days? However, what this book has done especially well is get me, and hopefully you, super excited for the launch of this system. As we get more and more options for this game, additional synergies and fun build crafting will be had, which may invalidate some of what is said here. And you may not even agree already with what I'm calling good or bad. Luckily, it's all subjective. There are so many ways to bake a pie in this system, let me tell you. I'm just sharing with you a little of what I like, and it's gonna be different than what you like, and that's okay. If you did like what I had to say though, then definitely make sure you catch parts 1 and 2 of this series if you haven't already. Part 1 talks about the 6 ancestries within this guide, and Part 2 does a deep dive on all 65 backgrounds in this book and what makes them tick. Happy munchin' and crunchin' Starfinder fans, and stay right here for more TTRPG goodness from Tony Pizza's Kitchen.